Paris, 1925. In a private suite at the Hôtel de Crillon, 6 of the city's most prominent scrap metal dealers gathered for what they believed was a confidential government meeting. None of them suspected they were sitting across from one of the most audacious con artists in history. The man hosting this meeting presented himself as a Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. His proposition was extraordinary. The French government, he claimed, could no longer afford to maintain the Eiffel Tower. It was to be sold for scrap. The scheme would become one of the most legendary confidence tricks ever recorded. The man behind it was Victor Lustig, and this was far from his only con. Victor Lustig was born Robert V. Miller in 1890 in Hostine, a small town in what was then Austria-Hungary, now the Czech Republic. From a young age, he reportedly demonstrated an unusual gift for languages, eventually becoming fluent in at least 5. As a young man, Lustig reportedly gravitated toward the gambling halls and luxury liners of pre-war Europe. He studied human nature with clinical precision, learning to identify vanity, greed, and insecurity in his marks. He cultivated an impeccable appearance, tailored suits, polished manners, and an air of quiet authority. Lustig understood that confidence was not about being loud. It was about making others feel they were in the presence of someone important. During World War I, Lustig began working transatlantic crossings between Europe and the United States, reportedly running card games and small cons aboard luxury steamships. Each voyage sharpened his technique. He operated under dozens of aliases throughout his career. Investigators would later compile a list of at least 45 names he had used. To law enforcement on both sides of the Atlantic, he was a ghost with a rotating identity. By the early 1920s, Lustig had established himself in both European and American criminal circles. He was charming, multilingual, and psychologically perceptive, a combination that made him extraordinarily dangerous. Lustig's most famous scheme began in the spring of 1925. He had reportedly read a newspaper article discussing the high cost of maintaining the Eiffel Tower. Where most people saw a mundane budget story, Lustig saw an opportunity. He forged government stationery and invited 6 scrap metal dealers to the Hôtel de Crillon, one of the most prestigious hotels in Paris. The lavish setting was deliberate. It reinforced the legitimacy of the meeting. Lustig told the dealers the sale must remain secret, that public outcry would be inevitable if Parisians learned the tower was being dismantled. The demand for secrecy was itself a master stroke. It ensured the victim would be too embarrassed to report the fraud. He identified his primary target, André Poisson, a dealer who seemed eager to break into the Parisian business elite. Lustig recognized Poisson's insecurity and exploited it, reportedly making Poisson feel he was being given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Poisson reportedly paid a substantial sum, believing he was purchasing the rights to dismantle the tower for scrap. Lustig also allegedly solicited a bribe on top of the sale price, mimicking the corruption Poisson expected from a government official. Lustig fled to Vienna with the money. Remarkably, Poisson never went to the police. The shame of being swindled was reportedly too great. Lustig had counted on this from the beginning. Emboldened, Lustig reportedly returned to Paris and attempted the same scheme a second time with a new group of dealers. This time, however, one of the targets grew suspicious and contacted authorities. Lustig fled before he could be apprehended. But the Eiffel Tower scam was only one chapter in a long career of fraud. Lustig also became notorious for his so-called money box, a device he claimed could duplicate currency. He reportedly sold these boxes to victims for thousands of dollars each. By the late 1920s, Lustig had relocated to the United States, where he continued his schemes across multiple states. American law enforcement agencies began to take notice, though his constantly shifting aliases made tracking him extraordinarily difficult. One of the most remarkable episodes in Lustig's career involved the notorious gangster Al Capone. According to widely reported accounts, Lustig allegedly approached Capone in Chicago with a supposed investment scheme, a move of extraordinary audacity. Lustig reportedly returned Capone's money after a set period, claiming the deal had fallen through. It was allegedly a calculated move. Capone, impressed by his apparent honesty, reportedly gave Lustig a cash gift. The con was the honesty itself. Lustig's downfall began when he turned to counterfeiting. Working with a skilled engraver named Tom Shaw, Lustig allegedly distributed high-quality counterfeit bills across the country. This brought him to the attention of the United States Secret Service. Secret Service agent Peter A. Rubano led the investigation. Agents painstakingly traced the counterfeit bills through a network of distributors, slowly working their way up the chain toward the source. A crucial break reportedly came from Lustig's mistress, Billie May, who allegedly contacted authorities after a personal dispute. Her information gave investigators the specific location they needed. Investigators also discovered that Lustig had been maintaining a detailed personal code system for his operations, a level of organization that demonstrated how methodically he had been running his criminal enterprise for decades. In May 1935, federal agents located Lustig in New York City. He was reportedly arrested on a Manhattan street. At the time of his arrest, agents allegedly found a key to a locker containing counterfeit bills and printing plates. But even in custody, Lustig's audacity did not diminish. Shortly before his trial, he managed one of the most daring escapes in federal detention history, reportedly using bedsheets to descend from the federal detention headquarters in Manhattan. His freedom lasted less than a month. Lustig was recaptured in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This time, authorities took no chances with the man they had come to regard as one of the most slippery criminals they had ever pursued. Investigators compiled a staggering record of Lustig's criminal career. His rap sheet reportedly listed over 40 arrests across multiple countries and decades, a testament to both his prolific criminal activity and his remarkable ability to evade lasting consequences. The evidence against him for counterfeiting was substantial. Agents had traced the distribution network, recovered printing equipment, and connected Lustig directly to the operation through witness testimony and physical evidence. His accomplice Tom Shaw was also arrested and would cooperate with authorities. The walls were closing in on Lustig from every direction. The man who had spent his entire adult life outrunning the law had finally run out of room. In December 1935, Victor Lustig stood trial in federal court in New York City on counterfeiting charges. The prosecution presented detailed evidence connecting him to the production and distribution of counterfeit currency. Lustig pleaded guilty. The man who had built his entire career on deception and evasion apparently recognized that this time the evidence left him no room to maneuver. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, among the harshest sentences for counterfeiting at the time. For a man accustomed to luxury hotels and first-class cabins, it was a devastating fall. Lustig was initially held at the federal detention headquarters in New York before being transferred to Alcatraz, the notorious island prison in San Francisco Bay, reserved for the most dangerous or escape-prone federal inmates. At Alcatraz, Lustig was reportedly assigned prisoner number 300. He was housed among some of America's most notorious criminals, including Al Capone, the very man he had allegedly once conned in Chicago. Victor Lustig was later transferred to the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri. He passed away there in March 1947, reportedly from complications of pneumonia. He was 56 years old. His death certificate reportedly listed his occupation as salesman. Victor Lustig left behind a document that has since become legendary in criminal folklore, a list of commandments for con artists. Whether he actually wrote it or it was attributed to him later, it reveals the cold psychological principles behind confidence fraud. His Eiffel Tower scheme has become perhaps the most widely cited example of a confidence trick in criminal history. It demonstrates how social engineering, exploiting trust, greed, and embarrassment, can be more effective than any physical tool. Lustig's story has been studied by criminologists, psychologists, and security professionals. His methods relied not on sophisticated technology, but on a deep understanding of human vulnerability, vanity, ambition, and the fear of looking foolish. His victims were not foolish people. They were experienced businessmen who were manipulated by a master of social engineering. Lustig's legacy is a reminder that confidence fraud targets the universal human desire to believe in opportunity. The Secret Service agents who finally brought Lustig down demonstrated that patience and methodical investigation could overcome even the most elusive criminal mind. In the end, his greatest weakness was the same as his victims. He believed he could never be caught. When Victor Lustig died in 1947, his death certificate listed his occupation as salesman. In a way, it was the most honest thing ever written about him, and perhaps his final con. A new case drops every day. Subscribe so you never miss one.